Welcome everybody to this edition of Beers with Bill, show number 104, the last show of the second year. Thank you all for joining me. It's my pleasure to welcome back Cam Bartel. We're going to be discussing wheat beers this evening, one of his favorite topics. Cam, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Bill. Good to be here. Thank you. I guess we'll get started with a beer off the top, if that's okay with everybody. Those of you who went out shopping, we're going to start out with Hoegaarden tonight. Hoegaarden, if you are Flemish. Feel free to pour along. We're doing basically talking about Belgian versus German wheat beers tonight. That's kind of the motif I wanted to share. I can't say that. Thank you kindly. So we're starting off with Belgians tonight. I find Belgian beers to be a little bit on the lighter side when it comes to the wheat side of things. Flavor profile, maybe even body a bit. So this is Hoegaarden. I'm pouring it all the beers tonight, so you're aware, in wine glasses, partially so we can kind of compare the colors over the evening, as well as the nose of it. Traditionally speaking, this is going to be served in like one of those glasses that weighs a ton. They're fantastic and they're delightful. I think I have one at home, but I'm not going to bite here with it. So we're going wine glass tonight. So salute, everyone. Please enjoy if you're having one.
Salute. So Mike's curious if there's a reason that they serve Hoegaarden in that great big glass.
I'm going to say yes, there is, Mike. Do I know what that is? No, I do not. I have no idea.
Well, then I'll tackle it.
You know?
It's served in that glass for two reasons. One, it holds the head much better than in any other shape of glass. They did research on that. And the size of that glass, the heaviness of it, actually keeps the beer colder for a while longer.
Okay. Yeah, good to know. I was not aware of that because that's not normally what I would envision to be a wheat beer glass. Like when I'm thinking wheat beer glass, normally I'm thinking something like this, which is what we'll talk about a bit later when we get into the German side of things. But I have had some wheat beers served in a bit more like for lack of a better word, women's physique, curvaceous glassware, if you will. But hourglass, thank you.
Correct, hourglass.
Sure, I guess, yeah, anybody can have that physique. In my experience, I don't have that physique, so I guess, yeah, fair enough. This is going to be, though, notes of spice and coriander. Sorry, pardon me, coriander, the spice, and curacao. For me, the major difference between Belgian wheat beers, I should say, W-I-T, and German Weiss beers or Weizen beers come down to the ability to add other ingredients. So as we talked about probably many times on the channel, of course, Belgians, you can add other things to the beer and still call it beer. In Germany, you still can't. So you have a situation where like a Berliner Weiss would be served by itself, but they would add cordial to it. But in Belgium, they actually do add coriander. I'm pretty sure it's the coriander seeds and curacao, the type of citrus. Normally very late in the boil. So I don't know. Anybody to test this beer? Like I really like it. I find it very easy drinking, patio friendly. The pairing of the spice and citrus is kind of nice to me. But any thoughts? Is anybody else drinking it, by the way? I guess. Fair. All right. Anyway, so Hoegaarden, it's I picked it. Part of the reason is because I wanted to have an actual Belgian beer for this variety. You can get a bunch of other Belgian wit beers, not reliably, especially this time of year. Unfortunately, I think it's still a bit early in the year to try and get like the super awesome variety of wits and white vices that are normally made like locally or domestically. So there are other places that make a great wit. New Limburg Brewing makes a fantastic wit. For those of you who have not tried it before, I'm pretty sure, at least they used to when they first started making it, it was also added chamomile to that brew. Very refreshing, very light. There's a couple places in the States that make a wit as well. But this one here, I picked it because it was basically the revival of the Belgian wit in the 60s or 70s. in, I can't remember the town, actually Hoogaard, I think actually is the town. So this style of beer, this Belgian white, was kind of falling in and out of popularity over the years in Belgium. This guy named Pierre Celis, or Celis, kind of brought it back into fashion back in the, I think it was the 60s, and became very popular. Eventually, Hoogarden got bought out by InBev, aka AB, Anheuser, Busch Bev, whatever. So it's now a multinational conglomerate kind of thing. Celis actually moved to Texas and had insight over a lot of other wits that are made. I think you can actually get a beer from a Texas brewery that has his oversight on the recipe still. You can even get a beer called the Celis White or Wit, Celis, not in Canada, I don't think. I actually had it in Belgium. And that actually is made by the same brewery. For those of you who know, I think we talked about Belgian beers in the past. For those of you who don't have it memorized, I won't hold it against you, but Van Steenbrugge, the guys who make Golden Drac or Pirat, you may have seen the Belgian sampler packs you can get in the LCBO. Those guys actually brew the Celis White as well. You can get that. Again, not in Canada. There's a bunch of other ones you can get. I don't know if I wrote them down here. St. Bernardus Wit, those of you who tried that, it's excellent sample as well. But this kind of goes back to just like the original reintroduction of the Belgian wit. So it wasn't just little old ladies sipping white beers. It became very, very popular, and it is now international again. That's kind of what I have to say about the Belgian wit. Any thoughts, Bill?
You're implying that we're little old ladies for drinking.
I'm fine with it. But yes, I am implying that. Yes. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Clarify that.
Yep. Valid. So yeah, I think it's refreshing. Bill was saying it's for him, it's the first few sips are probably where the best few sips for you.
Well, no, I was just sharing with you. I cannot drink that big honking glass of Hogarden because it gets too warm before I get to the end of it. So people make fun of me because I order the half pint, which is like a baby glass of Hogarden. So,
but for me, this I remember having this beer on a patio in Brussels. Me and my friend Johan were there traveling. We both ordered a big pint of Hogarden and a plate of frites with mayo, and it was a fantastic time in the sun. The beer probably warmed up, but I didn't even notice. It was enjoyable the whole time. That should technically make it more of a bouquet, I would imagine, but anyway.
So what do you think is the next one we're going to pour in a glass if you look at it?
Plan is going to be with the blueberry wheat. For those of you who have that, I'll get that right now so we can start talking about it. So this one here, Gahan, whatever. Those of you could see it. Oh, that's better. That's horrible. Okay. This one is a PEI beer. I picked this one because I wanted to showcase some of the fun things people have done with wheats, making them fruity. Yeah, just got that one. Okay, there we go. So this guy, I tried a bunch of blueberry blondes and things in the past. Could be scoffed at for adding fruit to beer. Depends where you're coming from. For me, I kind of think that this style of beer really pairs well with a light fruit like this. So if you want to pour it now, if you don't have to look at it, you can take a look at the color difference. So for those of you who don't have them, or better that way, sorry. This one here is the Hogarden. This is the blueberry wheat. So just on color, you've got a lot more going on. I would say if you gave this to me in a glass and didn't smell it, it's almost looks more like a German, just a straight German Hefeweizen kind of thing. But you smell it? Yeah.
It smells like a blueberry waffle.
Yeah. So
right away.
I don't know if these guys are using legit blueberries. Some breweries just use straight blueberries or like wild blueberries. Some use extract. My first time trying a blueberry blonde was actually Broadhead, I want to say, out of Ottawa. They make one. They make a blueberry blonde that they brought to like the Kitchener Beer Fest kind of thing. So first time trying, I thought it would be horrible. I actually really enjoyed it. I probably shouldn't be saying that, but I really enjoyed it. Also, who else? Shakespeare Brewing out of Shakespeare, Ontario, also makes blueberry blonde. I think theirs is more of a I'm going to say less fruity. So possibly using more real blueberries. Yeah, which is more like a traditional style brew. This guy, the Gahan, is uber patio friendly. It's probably a lot more sugary than you would expect as well. Some people might hate that about it. Some people might love it. I don't know. I understand why is pros and cons for both. So if you have that one, by all means, crack it open, give it a smell, and if possible, give it a compare to the other one, the Hogarden.
I'm just looking it up to see if they use real blueberries.
I didn't check ahead of time. Yeah, I should have probably checked. But it's not that sweet. Like if they're using just syrup or like an extract, I would expect more fake sweetness out of it. Personally. This is a guesstimation on my end, though. I don't know for sure.
Nope, they use real blueberries.
There you go. Okay. It's not that sweet. I mean, it smells like a blueberry, like you said, a blueberry pancake or whatever, but it's not that sweet actually on the palate.
No. Actually tastes
Yeah, it's more on the nose, right? So, we're at the Grad House right now. For those of you who can't tell, we will be getting looking forward to having the Shakespeare Blueberry Wheat coming on tap again soon. They're brewing a batch right now, so it should be ready in a couple weeks. So those of you who like this, who are A, trying it at home, B, like what you're tasting, you can probably get it sometime soon at the Graduate House, but not yet.
just a minute. We're not supposed to be doing plugs for business.
That's a good point, actually. Good point. Touche. Anyway,
We're sitting here at the Grad House tonight. Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I thought I use this as an example because the idea of natural flavors versus additive flavors. The other one on the list, if you could not find the Gahan one, I put on there this Schäuferhofer. I'm not saying that right, perhaps, but that is the. What's that? The O dot dot. You know, isn't that like a Schäufer? Are you sure? I'm not believing you.
I'm just doing the white guy thing.
That's noted. Okay.
White Canadian
guy. Schäuferhofer, I'm pretty sure. It's a grapefruit, almost like a Radler style, but Radlers in my mind normally are going to be more like a lager based, or this is actually used as a wheat beer. That's why I recommended it. So that one's going to be like, I think 3.2%, probably super syrupy and fake, but it gives you an idea of, just something you can do with wheat beer. That's kind of why I threw it in there anyway. So this compared to like this guy here has the Hogarden again has the additives done to the actual brewing process. There's a quote from Pierre Solis who said, if you add them too early, you're just basically throwing the aromas up the chimney kind of stuff. So they're added late to keep the aromas in the beer. This guy, I'm guessing it's probably fermented on the berries. That's normally how they do with fruit beers, if I'm not mistaken, as opposed to things like the Berliner Weiss where they actually add stuff to the beer when it's served, or they'll mix it before you serve it and served in like a large goblet. It's also a sour beer, which is why I would never put that on my show. So yeah, I'm not a fan of sours, for those of you who do not know that. I'm glad that they exist. I think that people who make them are great people. Just get the hell off my yard. Not my style. Anyway, so I'm not sure if anybody likes either of these or not. Maybe you don't like either of them. For me, I love if they're served really cold. They are very refreshing. Not a whole lot of residual bitterness, which if you're looking for like an IPA style or even like an APA, you're not going to get the same kind of tropical fruit notes. You will not get any of the pine notes at all. The ones moving forward, you will get different notes, but it's not because of the hops. These are all, I think, generally speaking, the German ones are going to be Hallertau based, if I'm not mistaken. But the hops don't really play too much of a prevalent role in the actual flavor profile. I think it's a pretty safe bet. Wouldn't you say, Bill? Yeah. So wheat beers. Keith talked about aging. I think it was the first episode of Beers with Bill when it was still whatever with William. Was still talking about the idea of cellaring. Wheat beers are one of those ones that, generally speaking, are not designed to cellar as much. Part of that is the alcohol percentage, I would say, and part of it is the flavors kind of drop off a bit, and also the particulate that is kind of inherent in the beer kind of settles out, so they become a lot. You kind of lose the suspended particulate over time. That being said, one beer that I have had excellent success with moderate aging with is actually La Fin du Monde, which is from Unibrew. For those of you who have not tried it, I could put it on the list. The thing is, we could talk about beer and wheat beer for hours, but I had to pick 4. So I didn't want to go with anything too crazy. But Fin du Monde, I think, is a fantastic beer, and it is a wheat beer. It's also more of a Belgian triple style. So it's going to be like high alcohol, super flavorful, but I've actually aged that. Let me rephrase that. As a happy accident, my roommate didn't drink a lot of beer, and he bought a 4-pack of Fin du Monde a long time ago. And he was like, yeah, he left it in his closet for a year. And he wanted to, and we actually opened one day, and it was fantastic. Like this complex notes, still had a good banana style notes to it, and it actually had a good like cloudiness to it as well. So I actually traded him a 4-pack of brand new Fin du Monde that he could have and drink, once per 3 months or whatever, and then I'd have his aged stuff. So then I started buying Fin du Monde 8 at a time, drinking 4 and then aging 4. So I would say you can have actually pretty good success with aging Fin du Monde. It becomes a lot more interesting than you would expect from a wheat beer, especially. FYI, fun fact. So I recommend trying it. Yeah. So for me, when I think of Unibrew and I think of Fin du Monde, I always think of Montreal, because although I first found out about Unibrew in Ontario, like actually in Kitchener, for me, every time I go to Montreal, I only allow myself to smoke shisha when I'm not in my home province. Otherwise, I would be my lungs would be black as a coal miner from the 1830s. So I love hookah. That's with an AH, by the way, and I love shisha. So I only allow myself to smoke shisha when I'm in Montreal, and I always go to a bar that has Unibrew on tap. So I've got a Fin du Monde in my pocket. I've got, maybe what's it blonde? They have a Don de Dieu. So these kind of, classic high alcohol wheat beers kind of always remind me of cherry flavored smoke as well, or rose flavored, depending on how we're feeling on the day. So that's kind of a soft spot in my heart for why I like these beers as well. So it's a bit memory driven for me as well.
So Brian's curious how long you would cellar them for and at what temperature?
Well, if you're my roommate from France and just put them in your closet at 22 degrees, you can do that. Frowned upon. I think the most, I've got wheats that I've cellared for years. A lot of them are going to be high alcohol, like 9+%. Tall bottles that I can't kind of crack and drink myself. I will not say you get diminishing returns faster sometimes on these. Like I've cracked some that are they're not worth cellaring. That's why I'm saying you go with a year, you're probably going to be fine, in my experience with the ones that I've had anyway. More than that, I mean, well, what's a 4-pack of Fin du Monde cost $12, so it's not going to really break the bank to try it. Have one a year kind of thing if you want to try it. But I will say that there is diminishing returns on this. There's beers that I have opened that are not worth opening or aging. So that's why I kind of put the 1-year caveat on that. I know for sure I've had beers that are fantastic at a year for wheat beers, high alcohol wheat beers. I'm gonna stop talking. That's my answer.
That's my answer. Interesting on the rest of that.
That's all I got.
It is safe to cellar in a closet because you're also controlling light, which is the next worst thing that you can get in beer.
Yep.
Is to be exposed to daylight. And what you don't want in cellaring is extreme temperature changes very quickly. So the back end of a cellar or back end of a closet, probably not as swiftly if you were sitting in front of a window.
Right. Yes. Sorry, the one I have normally, but I missed that part of the question. Sorry, you're right. All of my aging is done in the basement. So, 20 all year round, pretty much. Yeah, but I have when I was in an apartment, I've aged stuff just because I had my box of beer that I was lugging with me aging as I moved, and it was probably high 20s, low 30s, mid 30s is so hot that I had my shirt off spraying water on myself to try and cool myself on my day off. It was so hot I couldn't have enough energy to leave my apartment. So the beer somehow survived. That's all I'm gonna say.
And to answer that, do they sweeten?
Is Sweden. I would say that I don't think they get any sweeter. No, they shouldn't, because the ones that you're aging are probably going to be bottle conditioned. So if anything, they'd probably be a bit. They used to be a bit more active. I would say that they are. They seem to mellow a bit in the flavor. The flavor gets a bit more. They have the edges rounded off, a bit. That's how I would describe it best. I would say. That's fair enough. I didn't notice any more sweetness though. No, I would say not. Yep. Yeah. Any other questions right now, or just keep going?
We have the three that you want to do colors.
Sounds good.
Aromas with.
All right. So we're going to be going into. I'm not sure if anybody bought any, so I'm just going to say I bought both. Okay. So this guy here, okay, let's go. Canadian guy, pronounce this one for you.
Oh, I won't even.
Okay. So I don't know. Ettinger? Maybe. This guy I have never tried before tonight. So that's why I brought it back up. So I looked at the pictures online, and the color looked good. The cloudiness looked good. So I thought, how bad could it be? We will see in a minute. Okay. We're now descending or ascending, depending on one's viewpoint, into the realm of the Germans. I'm going to go for a bit of an aggressive pour here. This looks a bit, no, that's pretty good. Thank you, sir. Oh yeah, by the way, for those of you who did make the trek to middle of nowhere to pick up this beer, I would recommend taking that out of the fridge at this point in time and then having it stand somewhere to come up the temp a bit, which is what I'm doing right now. That's the Aventinus, by the way, not the Aventus. That's something different. Okay.
I spelled it wrong because
Twice, just saying, okay. So here's our third beer of the night. I'm going to call it Ettinger for lack of a better word. OE. I'm not sure how you pronounce OE in English. So, okay. So off the bat, well, first of all, let's do a color comparison. Good point, Bill. Thank you. Here's our Hochharten. This is the Ettinger German style wheat. You'll notice a comparable opacity in both, I would say. And this is the blueberry wheat. And this is the German one here, the one on this one here. The one on this one here is a German one. So I would say comparable color. This one here, the blueberry one, probably a bit darker. And because they're using the natural skins, probably because of the actual tannins or the actual skin color of the blueberry, that is. So off the bat on this guy, did anybody here try this? I can't even tell. Proxy's got it. I would say you get more bready notes on this off the bat. I was expecting a bit more of a hit with the banana and clove, which is
banana, just not banana, or it still had the head. It was expressing a lot of banana.
You get that now?
No.
Yeah, me neither. Okay.
No.
Yeah, I don't get a whole lot of that either, which is fine. But I've had a couple of German wheats that are going to be lighter on the malt, lighter on the, I guess, overall flavor profile that do have more of a biscuity kind of notes to it. So let's see. Have you tried it yet? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, that's quite nice. Actually, quite nice. A little residual sweetness. I think it's pretty solid, man. I don't know. I like that. I also brought along my backup, though, as I mentioned, just in case this one's garbage, which I didn't think it would be. I was just guessing, though. This is my backup. This is one of my faves. As you can, I don't know if you can see it. The lighting here is brutal. I apologize. This is Hacker Shore. This guy here, first off, you can still get it in these bad boy pop tops, which not a whole lot of guys are doing that. This guy here used to be only available in 500 ml bottles. Now they do cans. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Sacrilege. So this is, I'm going to pour this beer the way it should be poured in a proper glass made by Grasshopper, because that's the only brand I had at the house that has the exact shape I wanted. So I've got some great wheat beer glasses at home, but all I had here was grasshopper because for me this is the quintessential Hefeweizen glassware, which I love. I love it because it's the mirror image of the actual bottle, right? It's beautiful, beautiful. You love to see it. So this guy, we're gonna pop the top. Wait for it. You guys do ASMR still or not? You guys do ASMR or not? No? Oh, you like that one? Okay. So for the wheat beer, normally I'm going to give it a pretty good vigorous pour. Get the head forming. This guy is going to be just lovely. Oh, look at that. Okay. I want to have probably good 2 or 3 fingers of foam on that. And normally this glass actually is a bit small for the whole bottle. But when I get to about, I'm about here right now on the bottle. When I get to about there is when I want to start doing the old swirly-do. Incorporate your yeast back in and dump it back in. You do not have to do that. For those of you playing at home, you do not have to do that. In fact, some people do not like the added yeast back into the glass. I love it. When some of these guys here I mentioned in bottle, I have aged. Brian, you asked about aging too. I've aged some of these. These guys, if you have them for 3 or 4 years, turn into a cake of yeast in the bottom. It's kind of gross. I don't recommend pouring that back in because it just goes like chunk, 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 and it's kind of disgusting. So everything in moderation. So I want to say, look at this. Look at this pour, guys. Oh my goodness. How good does that look? Frothy. Oh man. Okay, you can smell this, Bill. Here, you can take away from that guy. I had to pour one beer at least correct in the correct glass and pour it right. Oh, it's delightful. Look at the color, man. Look at this color. Oh, this is why this is my go-to. Okay, so Hacker Shore never let me down. I have cases of these empty bottles at my house, and I'm like, someday I might brew beer. It's not going to happen. But they're resealable. They're fantastic. And the beer is drop dead. So if any of you bought Hacker Shore, please enjoy on me. Cheers. Oh yeah, that's delightful. That's got a bit more of the fruit notes that I was expecting. So basically, German wheat beer, same kind of idea of Belgian, kind of goes through a sine curve of popularity over the years. Back, I want to say 400 years ago, a while ago, a hot minute, as the youths would say. It's been a hot minute. The monarch actually of Germany at the time got into the wheat beer business because it got very popular, and then it kind of spread throughout Germany. Kind of fell off in popularity, actually became popular in the north, which is where we get the term Berliner Weiss from, which is W-E-I-B, or I'm not sure which way I'm facing, or like 2 S's, Weiss. That's the one that has it's a double fermentation. So it's going to be, first of all, lower percentage of wheat in the actual brew, closer to 30, maybe 20 to 30%. It's going to have a secondary fermentation made with lactobacillus. Everybody here, I'm pretty sure on this channel, probably knows what the heck I'm talking about when I say that, which gives it the tart flavor. And it's going to be, I'm not sure, I don't know if they filter it, but it's definitely going to be a lot more clean. I want to say lagery in that kind of, it's a lot more lighter of a beer. You're not going to have the same open vessel fermentation you get from the German southern wheats. So they kind of intentionally bypass the banana and clove notes. So those 2 things, which are for me fundamental for a German wheat, they intentionally omit. So Berliner Weiss became very popular, and then I don't know, years and years later, the Bavarian resurgence of wheat beer came back in, and that's going to be more of your Hefeweizen, which Hefe, of course, as everyone knows, is German for yeast, and Weizen, W-E-I-Z, depending on what you're listening to, E-N is wheat. So it literally means yeast wheat beer. So for me, that means unfiltered, cloudy, and the aromas and that you get are from the yeast, not from any additives or any hops. So the banana and clove are off, technically they're off flavors that are desirable, if that makes sense. Phenol is the word I'm going to use incorrectly, but that's the word I'm going to use. So different phenols from off flavors for yeast. So knowing a little bit of German, if you go to the LCBO, you can find out any kind of beer you want. So you already know that Hefeweizen means wheat yeast beer. Cristal, Kristall, just means filtered, or it means crystal, like crystal clear, but it's a filtered wheat beer, which would probably drink a lot more like probably like a lager or that kind of style, which is why I didn't feature one tonight, because why am I going to waste your time and mine with another lager? Yes, I said it. So that's kind of knowing a little bit about what's going on. Weiss is more of the Berliner Weiss, W-E-I-S-S. I believe actually there's an E on the end, I believe. This is more of a Hefeweizen. These last two that we talked about, the Ettinger, for lack of a better word, and the Hacker Shore. Bill, jump in. Anything to say?
There you have it, folks. Direct from the most opinionated beer snob I've ever on the show.
How can that be the case? That can't be the case. I'm the most opinionated? Wow, I'm honored.
Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
The most honest opinionated, because he's willing to share his opinion with us.
That's true. I mean, you're getting my unfiltered, my non-crystal, if you will, viewpoint right now. You're welcome.
Beers with Bill.
That's right.
Have a good night. We're going to stop recording now before
That
it gets
is
worse.
correct. That's right. Well, pretty safe. It's pretty safe. So yeah, I'm not sure if anybody's trying these, but so this guy is definitely more my style of when it comes to German beer. The big ones, very super cloud, super big fruit notes. There is a time and place for the biscuity ones as well. So the one we mentioned here, like the Ettinger, reminds me a little bit more of a beer made by the Eyinger Brewery. And I'm not sure if anybody's even familiar with that name. A-Y-I-N-G-E-R. Pours almost like this color for a German style, which is a bit atypical, and is a lot more like bakery notes. Not a whole lot of the actual off esters, for better or worse. So if you kind of like what we're having tonight, but you're like, oh, it's a bit too banana-y for me, something like that might actually be up your alley. It is worth of note for those of you taking notes about brewing stuff. Traditionally, recipes for the German Hefts actually have a percentage of chocolate malt in them. Schneider, has anyone heard of the Schneider Brewing Company? If you have purchased our fourth beer tonight, you may indeed have heard of them. Schneider Weiss. So Schneider Weiss is a beer that I did not pick for this talk tonight, but it's if what I have read about them is still accurate, I would be very hard pressed to find a better example of a traditional German Hef. So Schneider is one of the breweries that has not increased their production leaps and bounds, so they still use open fermentation tanks, which is atypical for mass-produced beers, like probably the ones we're having tonight. I can't speak for Ettinger, but I would be shocked if Hacker Shore is not in like the enclosed vessels. So Schneider Weiss, which you can get at the LCBO, it's always there. It has a lot more distinct notes than you will get off the ones we're having. These ones are a little bit more approachable, I find. Schneider has a lot going on, and it's not going to be just banana and clove, but it's super cool. They're still using like open fermentation vessels because their production isn't as high. So these guys they've been around a long time. Schneider. There's a lot of guys you probably recognize, probably 4 or 5. The ones that I listed as your third option, all of them are solid beers. You can even pick like an Erdinger. For me, I'm not an Erdinger fan. It's a bit too pedestrian, if you will. So Hacker for me has got a lot. It's like my go-to beer that has a lot of flavor. It's still easy drinking. So Schneider is kind of cool. If you want to try something that's got a lot more punch to it, not hop-based again, but more like complex yeast flavors, that's one of the best examples you get. And that's probably comparing it to a brewing style out of like Cantillon, who I'm pretty sure Ed's talked about that before. The idea of an open fermentation tank, like a 1 foot kind of high kind of tank that's designed open to the atmosphere, where the yeast just like sprawls out like a huge cake. So that's kind of cool as well, I think, anyway, for sticking to tradition kind of deal. But yeah, the chocolate malt, who knew? That's why the color's a bit darker than like this guy. Not a whole lot of chocolate in there for those of you who brew at home. Okay.
Try the blueberry.
Oh, yeah?
Now the blueberries
Coming up? Yeah. I mean, it's still super high on the nose.
Getting back in the blueberry in flavor.
Yeah.
So as it gets warmer.
That's nice. It's a nice beer, man. It's nice, you know. No, it's not offensive. It's great. Jackie may not be here at the door. FYI. Not sure if you want to let her in. Your call. Your wife, your life. Correct. Yeah. So I don't know. One other interesting thing about a wheat beer is the fact that it takes, to do them correctly, a triple temperature. They hold the brew at 3 different temperatures for different amounts of time. I bought this book a long time ago, Brewing with Wheat, which is by a gentleman named Stan Hieronymus, who goes over history of wheat beer, and he also gives you recipes and starting Play-Doh, all that kind of stuff, and then how long to hold this beer at this temp, and then are we doing decoction for this batch, or are we doing spices, adding SPEISE, which is the idea of taking some wort off of a batch and then adding that into the beer you're making right now to kind of bottle condition it a bit. So very in-depth book, because back in the day when I was young and innocent, I thought I would start brewing beer. But then I realized I don't like cleaning, and I would rather just drink beer. So I have never brewed a beer in my life. I probably never will, because I realize how much work it is. I'm not going to hold a batch of beer to 3 different temperatures over 2 hours, and then I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, though.
You can arrange for you
No.
to say roll the beer when you help me brew.
Push button.
You have to push the button.
Push button, yeah. Push button brewing. As much as I hate, there's things that I hate in the world, push button espresso is one of them. Push button brewing does sound like a lark, though. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Everything was done except that point.
Yeah, so I would love to have I'm not sure how brewers in Ontario who do hefts do it. If they do it like a triple, holding at different temps for different times. If they do that, if they're doing decoction, I'm not sure what they're doing. Side launch makes a pretty decent heft, I think. I'm not sure how they make it. I will pretty well guarantee you it's not open ferment. But I'm just trying to think of places I could have, or people I could have as examples of a good classic North American heft. But then I thought, why am I going to bother with my time? And let's just go back to the source. Why reinvent the heft, if you will? And I will. So, do you want to try this, by the way?
No, okay.
Oh yeah. So, of course they have a tap there, right? Yeah. So good.
So I'm really happy that you pointed out the aspect of swirling before you pour the last.
You have to. You really have to. Yep. And you'll see it kind of like cascade down the glass, assuming you haven't been aging for 3 years. So this guy is one of the ones, like I said before, that I have aged. This guy has gone off on me. I don't know if it's gone off. It's gotten worse. So it was some of these we'll talk about this more in depth, I guess, but that beer is designed with the aging in mind. I think it might even be aged before you can buy it. But too much of that is not a good thing necessarily. So, like you said. Yeah. So that's okay. So
we were talking beforehand, and you said that there's a story behind being a gourmand.
I implied that there was a story. It's quite visible in my face. I like the finer things in life as long as I can eat them in volume, which makes me, I'm pretty sure, not a gourmet, if I'm not mistaken. I wouldn't say that's a story necessarily. I'd say it's more of a character flaw than anything else. I aspire to be a person of respected tastes, but usually that does not coincide with volume of eating capacity and or drinking capacity. So that's kind of why I don't like to use the word even expert. Snob, maybe. Expert. Gourmand is more up my alley. Eating a lot of very rich things, that's kind of like, yeah, I can thrive on that, yeah. It's not a great story though, but it's more of a, yeah, who is this guy you're talking to about wheat beer? That's me. Yeah.
I recommend you should read Jim Harrison's The Raw and Cooked.
So what?
Read the book from Jim Harrison, The Raw and Cooked.
Okay. Is that going to like bring me down a couple notches? Is that the idea, Brian? I wouldn't expect that of you. Yeah. Anyway.
So we could reintroduce the show Galloping Gourmet.
Yep. Or Two Fat Ladies. For those of you who don't know that show, it's a great TVO show, I think, from like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But two fat ladies and it's actually called Two Fat Ladies, by the way. I'm not, two fat ladies riding around in a sidecar motorcycle. Come on, man. I know one of us has the girth for that already. Hint, it's me. Oh, sorry, right.
Was me that said my ass was too big to squeeze between the table and the pillar.
That is correct. That's correct.
And Terry and Emma, I like this. Maybe you're a bon vivant.
Sounds
a person who has cultivated and refined taste, especially with respect to food.
Yeah, sure. I would say that's giving me too much credit, but I thank you for the attempt to raise my spirits a bit. Thank you.
It's okay. They're also saying that you're a great writer, as long as we don't worry about your punctuation.
Right. What's wrong with the punctuation?
What's important about punctuation?
Exactly.
Ask Rogers, because they'll ask the grammatical error. So, I think it was Rogers.
Could be.
Yeah, there was a dispute over a contract.
Oh.
Interpretation of the contract, and it was because of a punctuation mark, it completely changed
Oh yeah,
the meaning of the word.
that's bonkers, but yeah, I believe that. Bill, are you okay if I start pouring the fourth? I'm just gonna rinse your glass. Okay, or wherever you don't want, I don't care. I'm just gonna pour it.
Just a bit.
So, for those of you paying attention at home, we are going to start cracking onto what I would argue is the pièce de résistance, the piece of resistance, if you will.
The spelling mistake Bill made. Yeah.
Yes, correct. Aventinas. This is you should not be able to get this beer this cheap in Canada. Where's your glass? Is it here? Okay, cool. So, one thing I was talking with the idea of Bill asked me to speak. Yeah, speaking English. Thanks, Brian. The idea of hosting was, what can I talk about? Because we talked about glassware, talked about Cam's favorite Belgians. I think. We talked about wine.
Talked about wine, yeah.
This, the idea of a box came to my head, and no, not what your typical chicken would say. Boy, that's a bad one, Bill. That's a bad one. Bok. Okay, never. Tough crowd. Okay, well done. This guy here actually is a bock as well. So box, typically speaking, B-O-C-K, German style lager for the most part. These are going to be, you've probably heard the term Maibach before, M-A-I, Bach. You've probably heard the term Doppelbock. If you haven't, these are also German words. Mai, of course, meaning May. Doppel meaning double. This is a Weizenbock. Anybody here have this? Or is it just me and Bill? Salute. So this is going to be a high alcohol, 8.2 Weizenbock. So it's going to be a Doppelbock that is made with wheat beer. Normally, bocks are lagers, so they're made with barley. They are lagered. They look the same color. Probably going to be a little bit more clear, probably like less opaque. And they are going to be lager, like made with lager yeast. When you start making them with wheat, you actually use an ale yeast. So this is going to be a slight difference between a Weizenbock and a Maibach or whatever. So this guy here, first off, the caramelos are ridiculous on the color. This is compared to, this is, by the way, your blueberry wheat in comparison. Yikes. Almost looks like a Belgian double, maybe a very frothy brown ale. So you tried it yet? You tried it?
I'm still trying to pick out all the corners.
So this, I would say, is probably the sweetest beer of the night, I would say. Residual sugar. The blueberry had more fruit notes to it, but that's not really perceptible as sugar. This guy, when I age it for a bit, you get bananas Foster, which is for me a delightful pairing of bananas caramel, like kind of like a burnt caramel kind of deal. You don't really get the citrus on that, but you get from Grand Marnier. Yes, I know how to make bananas Foster. Ladies, tell your friends. But this is going to have like your burnt caramel banana kind of thing, a little bit more residual sweetness that you get on any of the other wheats tonight as well, which is kind of why I wanted to bring it on there, because this is not, we do, if I go to a patio and order a pitcher of wheat beer and they gave you this, technically it's a wheat beer, you would be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Or you'd probably say, thank you very much. This is a $35 pitcher. I'll take it. So yeah, it's available. I think it was it $4 at the LCBO, something like that. This should not be $4 at the LCBO. This is released. It's a 1907 recipe made by the Schneider House, Schneider Brewing. It dates back that far. They made it. I think it was almost an unheard of or very rare style of beer back then, and they've been making it since then. By the way, anytime you see a wheat beer that's going to have, generally speaking, the colors will be blue and white, I believe, which is the color of the Bavarian area. So Hacker-Shore also is going to be a blue and white kind of label. Typical for German. Again, blue is Bavarian colors, right? So this guy, I think, is fantastic. I think this guy could be aged a year or so. It would be a bit more dominant in the flavors, personally. It's not quite as big as I was expecting, but the residual sugar is still there. The caramel is still there. I've also had 5 beers tonight, so my palate is a bit wonky, and it's 8.2. So I think it's fantastic. I really wish they served it in a bottle still. So I don't think they're adding yeast to this. I mean, I don't know for sure, but because we can find it in a second here. Maybe. I don't know. I can't tell. The bottle, you can always tell the sediment in the bottom. That's good stuff. Yeah. So this, I was toying with the idea. I want to have a dark wheat on for sure. It's easy to get Erdinger Dunkel, which is always available at the LCBO. You can always get that. And then a guy I used to work with, Dennis, for those of you who may know him, used to be a bartender at the Grad House. He used to live near the Alpine Center, which always, for some reason, always had this beer over a case all the time available in bottle for like $4. So we just go, he'd tell me it's there. I go buy some, he'd buy some. I buy too much because I buy, 12 bottles and I realize this is a big beer. I'm not just going to drink it by myself. So then I age it for 5 years and then I can't drink it. So that's, first world problems. I get that. But so that's kind of how I got into drinking this beer. It's fantastic. And I thought, I looked, what wheat beers are available, like easily accessible right now, if you can go to a different store. And they've got, 48 at the Northfield one. So I'm like, well, okay, we're doing this one because this is, for those of you who make the trek, I think it's definitely worth it. It's definitely going to have a lot less, I'm going to call it charcoal or like direct burnt notes that you get on the Dunkels, the straight Dunkel Weiss. Dunkel meaning like dark or darker. So Erdinger Dunkel is going to have a little more cleaner on the body. I think it's going to be a little bit less sweet overall. It's going to have more of your dark roast kind of deal. Whereas this guy is not normally, you shouldn't be able to find this, and you shouldn't be able to find it this cheap. They also make a version of an ice bock, which is where you freeze part of the beer to make the alcohol higher. You probably have heard of those. I think Brewdog back in the day made a 14 or an 18% frozen ice beer just because they can. So ice box are kind of in that category, but they're not being dumb about it. They're just making it up to like maybe 10 or 12%, which, as I'm saying that, sounds kind of dumb, but they're great. So anyway, salute. I think it's fantastic. I don't know. It's not for everybody though. It's got a lot of flavors that you probably don't associate normally with beer, especially if you're an IPA head, if you're a sour head, if you're a lager head. We're probably killing you tonight. I apologize. Ain't no lagers in sight. I could have brought on an American wheat beer. This stuff, yeah. I was good. Well, somebody, that's one person. I'll take it. Yeah, just so talking a little bit more about the idea of box. If you are in the market for a bock, if you kind of like this profile but didn't like the wheat part, you can get bocks. I think they're normally around a Christmas kind of style, and they are generally speaking doppelbock, so kind of more in my wheelhouse. You get like a very dark roast, high sugar content. Anything that ends in an ATOR suffix, ater, is generally speaking going to be the German suffix for a doppelbock. So back in the day at kickoff, you could get Paulaner Salvatore on tap, which was a very dangerous situation for me. Fantastic beer. Oh man, like dangerous beer. Salvatore right now is available at the LCBO. For those of you who want to try it, it is deadly. But it's a Bock, not a Weissenbach, which is why I didn't pick it for tonight. So it's going to be no wheat in that one. Also, Iinger, I mentioned it earlier, has a beer called the Celebrator, which is also going to be your Doppelbock, ATOR. So anything that ends in an ATOR is generally speaking going to be that kind of style of beer. Normally, I think they also have some insignia or like a logo, or even sometimes like a little ornament of a ram, I believe, or a goat. A goat is the symbol of the Doppelbock. I believe Doppelbock. I don't think it's just a bock. Pardon me. I think it's just a Doppelbock. Anyway, yes, Brian, I saw that. American wheat. American wheat exists. Wheat exists. That's all it needs to be mentioned about it. It's not worthwhile mentioning typically, but it does exist. Technically, it exists. 30% maximum wheat ratio. It's filtered. It's boring. Why is it even called a wheat beer? Does it have banana notes? No. Does it have clove? No. Does it have coriander? No. But it exists.
My last beer was a Doppelbock.
I didn't say you. I said American wheat. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on American wheat. Yes, it exists. I couldn't even find one if I wanted to. One thing I did want to find though that I couldn't, I think it's the time of year, is a Hopfenweisse, which I'm pretty sure is a made-up word, probably not even German, because hop isn't a German word, as we all know. It's okay, cool. Anyway, Hopfenweisses exist as well. There's a couple of years ago, a couple of people, I think a Canadian company possibly, but an American one for sure, made an excellent Hopfenweisse. It's going to have all your characteristics of like a generally speaking, a wheat, like the Ettinger one. Not going to be super banana clovey, but it has also like hyper hopped. So it's going to have kind of best of both worlds. Spearhead made one years ago called an India White, which maybe people have tried that. I'm not sure if they liked it or not, but it did exist. So that style has been made in the past. I could find 0 examples of it right now. I'm not sure if they still make it because I don't think anyone's really buying it that much. It wasn't really that popular, I don't think, but it was kind of a cool example of things you can do with wheat that don't just have banana, cloves, and other fruits. Yes.
With the internet.
Uh-huh.
You can look up where Hopfenweisse.
Okay. Is it German?
It's German.
Get out of here.
Traditional German wheat beer style, but with generous amounts of hops.
Mm-hmm. What's the German word for hop? It's not hop. It's not hop. Is it? It can't be. Whatever. Okay. It's a German style. Okay. All right. Thank you for taking. Okay.
German word for hop.
Is hop? That can't be. Oh. Okay. Oh, was it 2 dots?
2 dots. So it's like an O.
Hopfenweisse. Okay. So I stand corrected. It apparently is a German word. I pretty well guarantee you I have not seen a dot on the American version, but however, it does exist.
German word.
That's right. So contrast to the American wheat, which is going to be basically 30% approximately wheat beer. Probably going to be, if it's not, it might not be filtered, but they intentionally avoid the esters you get it from the yeast. Compare that to a I can't remember what the brewery is called, but the brewery that Pierre Celis went to in Texas, which again would be following more of a Belgian style wit, which actually is a more traditional style wheat beer made in America. Fun fact. Fun fact? Is that a fun fact? I don't know. Fun fact? Question mark? I don't know. Depends on who you're talking to, I guess. Yeah, this blueberry is actually really nice now. It was too cold before. For those of you who still have the blueberry wheat, if you've kept it around, try it again now. It's going to be a lot more fruity right now, I would say, in a good way. This guy smells a lot more just like this is the Ettinger. Has a lot less character to it now. Anyway, so for those of you who like this, I'm guessing nobody even bought this. That's what I'm guessing. For those of us who like this, if you did, LTM Les Trois Mousquetaires, which is a lovely Quebec brewery, makes a Weizenbock as well. At least they used to anyway. It's a fantastic, super hardcore version of this you can get domestically. LTM makes some really great beers. They make a really good Baltic porter as well. So look, you can't find them very often. LCBO seems to be leaning more towards these days the canned products and domestic, like local, like not as much from Quebec and stuff. In fact, their whole European lineup has gone down, I would say, severely, but sometimes you can get that kind of beer as well. So the Weizenbock from LTM, if those of you interested in trying a style like this, I would definitely recommend that as well. And that, Bill, is where we draw tonight's conclusion about wheat beer. Thank you for joining us.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me for the last show of year 2 of Beers with Bill. Thank you all for being so supportive all the way along. Next week, Cam has graciously offered to allow me to do a Scotch class here at the grad house. So with a quick show of hands, I guess maybe just a